Welcome to Lights in the Night with your host, Russell Johnson. Uncover the truth about alien contact and hear from insiders who reveal the evidence. Stay tuned.
Hi, good afternoon. Back with lightsinthenight.org and talking about UFOs, UAPs, and the soft disclosure done by the Pentagon. But I understand, somebody said to me the other day that in addition to the soft disclosure, we call it soft disclosure because much of this information most people can't handle. It'll be way over their head. So we just take it and do what the Pentagon says and give us the tidbits of the soft information about the Pentagon. You know, soft information that people have been abducted. There's such a thing as aliens walking around among us. The aliens living in the tunnels in the hollow of the earth. That when Neil Armstrong, and other guys went to the moon, Alan Cooper and all those, they saw aliens there. They saw spaceships there. I mean, some of the stuff I said, you think I'm crazy, but I got to tell you. So, I mean, when you go deep into this stuff, it's just absolutely way over most people's heads. To even think about that another entity on the planet, not one entity, but there are dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of entities from different parts of the galaxies coming to visit us. Now, some people turn off the radio at this time because they program differently. They can't understand that. And this has been going on not for 1 year or 2 years, not since what they call Roswell of 1947, but hundreds of years ago it's been going on, even back in the 1800s, if you do your history. Well, one thing I would encourage people to do is to do a little history. And one of the people who have presented this history to us is Dr. Stephen Greer, and he started out a few years ago with series documentary. Then he did Unacknowledged, and then he did The Lost Century, which is another one that he just finished. It's a documentary explaining all of this. Now, we have a guest, and I'm not gonna do all the talking. I don't want to be the messenger, but I want to have people on the air who are the messengers and who want to give us the information that they've been researching for the last 60, 70, 80 years or more. The gentleman with us today, he's been researching it at least 20, 30, 35, 40 years. So he's steeped into this. And he met a lot of other people who have been in whistleblowers who have given a lot of information. So anyway, without further ado, let's talk about it. We have Norman Manes on it. Norman, welcome to Lights in the Night. How are you doing today?
Russ, great to be with you again.
Well, it's my honor. And I know that you know a lot of information, much more than most of us. Let's go back. Tell people who you are. Tell them about your website and what you're working on. And tell them how long you've been studying aliens, UFOs, abductions, cattle mutilations, and all of that stuff. Tell them the whole thing. You have the microphone.
My current project that I'm working on is called Karmic Scrolls, which you can find at karmicscrolls.com, which is based on philosophy, master traditions, masters of the Far East, and spiritualism, which brings in also galactic knowledge, which a lot of this channeled information that came through in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and beyond was a mix of spiritual information and alien or extraterrestrial information. But my work in this goes back to the late 80s when I was contacted by a group from the Pleiades star cluster. And they, at that time, were working with somebody that you know, who is George Green, passed away a few years ago. And George and I worked together briefly on a few projects, and that led to many decades of research on my part to try to understand what the message was and how it connected to other messages. And lately, what I've been trying to do is put together a database of information spanning nearly 100 years to try to understand what is the alien presence or the extraterrestrial presence here on Earth, what types of entities or beings or cultures are coming to our planet, and how do their messages, how are they different or how are they similar? And that's been my work for quite a long time. And Karmic Scrolls is really an extension of some of the most important, more spiritual and cultural knowledge that's coming through certain extraterrestrial groups.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a mouthful. So there are people who are being abducted or were being abducted in a large sense of the word, and we want to talk about that. Uh, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the basics. UFO 101. There are abductions. There have been abductions. Maybe not as prolific as they were. Let's talk about that. Why were people being abducted, and who was abducting the people, and again, why?
My perspective is unique and is controversial, and I have shared it with you before, and I'll share it again. The abduction phenomena is as common as the sightings. In other words, right around approximately World War II, when there started to be more and more sightings and people became more and more aware of the activity of possible extraterrestrial spacecraft in our atmosphere, the abduction stories began around the same time. And some of these encounters, which were made popular in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the idea would be, we'd now call that CE, such as CE5, but Close Encounters of the First Kind was seeing something in the sky, and perhaps Close Encounters of the Second Kind was seeing something land, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind was actually having some kind of close proximity contact to extraterrestrials or aliens. And so as soon as this contact became close, in other words, people were seeing craft landing nearby or seeing craft in close proximity, people began having lost time and what dark journalists called the apotheum effect, which is a distortion of time and space where they would lose their memory, or they were in one place and would find themselves somewhere else. And like I said, lost time events where hours or days would pass, which seemed like seconds to them. So a lot of what we would call supernatural things started happening to people when they got into proximity of what they believed to be extraterrestrials. And that's where the abduction stories began. And it was really almost exactly parallel to when the sightings began and people began to popularize the idea of seeing things in the sky.
Okay. Did you see Chameleon, or did you see The Fourth Kind, or Fire in the Sky? All three are different motion pictures.
I have.
Okay.
I have not seen The Fourth Kind, but I did see Communion. I have that book by Whitley Strieber, and then Fire in the Sky, which is the story of Travis Walton.
Okay. Would you recommend for those people who kind of on the fence about believing all this to watch those motion pictures or read those books or read the books?
For me personally, what I think is very important for people to do is to have a broad spectrum of experiences to research for themselves. When I was in college, I took a film study course, and I was really into sci-fi movies and aliens and whatnot. Then I decided to take it upon myself for one of the projects to do a study of the depiction of extraterrestrials in film, and I specifically chose the 1950s. That's when these sci-fi movies like The Thing from Another World, Invaders from Mars, became really popular. And so I sampled about 20 or 30 movies, and back then it was a long time ago. I'd rent these on cassette, VHS, and go home and watch them. And in the sampling I took of 20 or 30 movies, only one movie, which is The Day the Earth Stood Still, which is a black and white movie, was the only one that depicted extraterrestrials as benevolent messengers who are here to tell us something positive. So I always encourage people, if the only stories that you're seeing are stories where people are having things done to them against their will, they seem like they're being abused, maybe they're being taken without consent, and these are the only stories they can find, they need to work harder to find other stories where there's messages or contact, like the story of George Van Tassel, his contact with the Venusians here in Southern California in the 1940s, is completely benevolent. There was no harm done to him. It was information. So I always encourage people to find a balance there so they don't get into a fear-based scenario about these possible encounters.
Okay. We have Sally Barnard. She has her own show. She's been abducted. She an intuitive and clairvoyant, and she's been out of body experiences. All that. Do you have anything you want to ask him?
Yeah, to me, I never, and I was abducted as far as I know quite a few times. It was always a pleasant experience. I mean, they showed me many things. They actually showed me, this was quite a few years ago, I was taken off this planet to other planets. I documented it all actually in my book as it was happening. I had no idea at the time. I just knew that I was going somewhere. But they showed me a place that was actually AI. They were working on AI. And today, now I see exactly, because it's still vivid in my memory a lot. I don't remember everything, but I say I was never scared. But actually, my very last time that I remember that I was abducted, and I was abducted many times that were pleasant, I was approaching something that was very round, that was about to take off. So today, now I know exactly what it is, I think.
Do you have a question of
Then
Norman?
I just wondered if he was mentioning that a lot of these were, pleasant abductions. Do you find that you have had many people say that, or are they mainly scary?
Did you hear me, Norman?
I think I did. Thank you. Thank you, Sally. Going off of the media presentation, I think it's, and I don't mean to be cynical, I think it sells more books and sells more videos and sells more movie tickets to talk about invaders that are here to kill us or exploit us or to manipulate us or, take over. I would argue that if an alien force had the technology to take over Earth and through hostile means, some kind of violent overthrow, they would have done this a long time ago. So the narratives that tend to show up in the media, movies and television, books, are narratives that are somewhat negative. But there are many stories like Sally's where the encounters are positive or neutral, where it appears to be these are beings who are here to study, to gather information. They're not here to do anything against our will. There is some consent, even if it's telepathic or implied consent, or the encounters are positive. So I think it's the whole spectrum, but we don't hear as much about the encounters that are consensual, or the encounters that are don't involve some kind of abuse or exploitation.
And we have also Dawn. She's the owner of this Brooklyn Cafe, the media studio, which houses a ton of information here, studio equipment. And we have students coming in every day to learn how to be producers and directors and on-air personalities. And she's teaching them, and she's been doing it for some time. How many students have come through the Brooklyn Cafe, say, in the last 5 years, 10 years?
Oh my gosh, since we've been doing this, there have hundreds. So it's got to be 300 students.
Wow.
So many so that we've actually just created a foundation called the AMP Media Futures Foundation. And it's about empowering college students to get hands-on experience in media communications and the production industry. And they're what runs this studio. They're the lifeblood of seeing what goes on. And you see our new student, she's just in awe of this show, that we're actually talking about the things that aren't talked about. And aliens and what's happening and really what's out there and energies. No,
normally you wouldn't hear it on CBS, NBC, CNN. They don't broadcast this yet.
No, I think you are on cutting edge. You always have been, but more and more it's coming out. People are thinking about it. Right. They're actually embracing the thought that it may exist. Yep. But you and Norman and Pure Light, you are right here in the thick of technology, sharing new technologies that are only in space.
Give us here's the brochure.
Pure Light.
Light bulb.
Pure Light's incredible. Pure Light is revolutionary technology. It's an air purification system that's integrated into a special LED light bulb, and it eliminates pet odors, human odors, even mold and smoke odors just by flipping on a light switch. And we actually have it in our bathroom here. and this is a very busy restroom.
I can imagine.
And it is, not only does it offer a tremendous amount of light, the odors are eliminated, and you can use the restroom and you don't have to keep the door closed all the time. So for us, it's been incredible. It's got a 5-year guarantee, 100% money back guarantee. And if you visit PureLight, PURE-LIGHT.com, and if you use the code RUSS, RUSS, you get an exclusive 20% discount to breathe cleaner air, feel happier, and live pure light. And they're saying that it actually helps raise the vibration, raise happiness, feel better, cleans the environment, eliminates smoke, eliminates allergens. But can you imagine your home smelling better and feeling happier?
And it says something about getting rid of mold, too.
It gets rid of the smell of mold. I know they're still under some EPA and FDA registrations before the rest of, their claims come out. But what it's doing for light, we use it in the studio, all our overhead lights, and I'm looking forward to changing over all our LED fluorescents. I know we're going to try and get some of those because they have large fluorescents for commercial size.
And we bring this up because when they, like Roswell, 1947, and so far they're about, Norman, I understand, about 120 spaceships that have been back engineered at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and General Electric and Norman Grumman and all of that. Could you speak to that? Because I think this invention came from the Russians on that space station, that they had a problem with mold, and they put this. And is that where it came from?
That is what they're saying, that it is a multi-million-dollar air purification system developed by NASA, which has been used in the International Space Station. And if you think about what the astronauts are living with in these tight quarters and what emanates in their capsule of where they're at, you got to get rid of mold. You got to get rid of odors. You got to get rid of all the particles that are floating in space. And this technology in a simple light bulb, we can have right here in our homes and our businesses.
Well, I was telling my son about it, and he was telling his wife, she said, hurry up and get some. But anyway.
And they deliver. We have a whole case that they sent. We used your promo code RUSS, RUSS. We got a 20% discount.
Oh, wow.
It's PureLight, PURE-LIGHT.com. I think everyone should try it out.
Right. It's guaranteed. Norman, he probably gets some too, and try those in his home. But when we talk about the ships going down and they back engineered, what has come forth, as you know, so far? I've watched Stephen Greer. He talks about some of the, bring us up to date on some of the things that they have, 0 point energy and all of that.
The recovery of crashed spacecraft has been not just common in the United States, but this has happened in China, Russia, in Africa, in Australia, really across the globe. And the scientists in these other countries, such as the Chinese and the Russians and our Western countries, have all been working either independently or through some kind of cooperation to reverse engineer this technology. Some of it they've been able to use, and some of it they haven't. But what's interesting is, if you look at the development of central processing computers, what we think of as personal computers, going back to Intel and the work that was done back in the 50s and 60s, there's an interesting correlation between MJ12 in 1954, 1955, and the growth of Silicon Valley. And I wouldn't go so far as to say that all of that technology, when I say this is a silicon wafer technology that we use in our CPUs and all of our phones and laptops and everything, is a direct result of alien technology. But there's a very interesting correlation between the creation of MJ12 and Silicon Valley and the growth of personal computing. And it's possible that some of the technological breakthroughs that were made in the 1950s were the result of some of this technology that was leaked through these black budgets into the mainstream technology and science operations, primarily through Stanford research in California and everything that was going on in Palo Alto at that time as well. So it's very likely that some of these people, which could include Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, were working on technologies that maybe they thought were just breakthroughs that were organically made, but may have come from some reverse engineered stuff that was coming from otherworldly craft.
Yeah, it's really developing. If I would suggest for people to get, because we only have a small bit of time, to look at the Lost Century, the documentary. They can Google that and watch it for an hour and a half or something, hour, 10 minutes, by Dr. Stephen Greer, where he talks about all of the 0-point energy and all the things that have been come forth, if you will, as a result of the back engineering of the spacecraft. And then, in addition to that, I would go to the book by Dr. Corso, Philip Corso, and he did a book before he passed on, and he handled all of that, the crash, the down craft, and took it to Norman Grumman and Westinghouse and some of the other manufacturing facilities, the information. But his book is The Day After Roswell. I would get that book, and he talks more about that. Do you know anybody else who was handling all of this besides Dr. Greer and Dr. Corso in terms of the back engineering of the spacecraft that we got? Norman?
I think there's a lot of good information related to Bob Lazar, who some of these individuals are tracking his story. Some people have put him forward as a LARP or as some kind of phony plant or something. He seems to be genuine in that he did work on this technology and was really put in a very difficult position as a result of speaking out about it. He got in quite a bit of trouble for that. So the trouble that people get into is typically a sign that they've said too much or said the wrong thing. So things related to Bob Lazar, not all of it, I think is a good place to take a look if you're interested in the technological things. And you brought up Michael Salla as well, with the secret space program and also the other people that were involved in that are a good place to look as well.
Well, you work with George Green. Did he talk much about the back engineering and some of the things that the things that?
Yes.
What did he talk about the med bed? Did he have anything about the med bed?
Anyone who wants to visit my website, to go to karmicscrolls.com, KARMIC scrolls.com, and up along the top of the website, you'll see a resources page. It's in the upper right-hand corner. Click on resources. At the very top of that page, you'll see something called the Phoenix Journals. There's a link to that. These are free PDFs, and there's a PDF in there called Spacegate, like Watergate, Spacegate, the Veil Removed. That particular Phoenix Journal, of which there's many hundreds, goes into very detailed information about MJ12 and about Roswell and about Wright-Patterson and these technologies, and actually gets into some of the conversations about the downed craft and if there were any individuals that were taken prisoner or used for testing in that. So I recommend taking a look at that too. On the spiritual side too, there's so much stuff on that resources page.
Okay.
There's links to all kinds of great books and information websites.
George Green left us a few years ago, maybe about a year and a half, 2 years ago, but he left a website. It's www.nohoax.net. That's nohoax, HOAX.net. And a lot of stuff that he left because you and he were out there on the speaking podiums together. Let me say, we have 1 minute. Can I take 30 seconds to close it out for us, or for you? You are not only abducted, you could be abducted, but you are also a contactee. 30 seconds. Tell us, how did that happen? How did they contact you and why?
That's correct. So George Green came to me. He mentioned to me directly that the Pleiadian Galactic Federation of Light that he was working with wanted to speak to me. He had me go to a location in the desert in a very remote place where I met with a group of people, and through a beautiful woman who was just the nicest, sweetest person in the world, who was a scribe for the Pleiadians, she was able to bring through the Pleiadian commanders so they could speak to me directly. So it was about as direct as you can get without taking a ride on a spacecraft.
Okay, good. Norman, it's an honor, a privilege, and an enlightening school of thought to have you on the program today, and I really appreciate you being here. So let's catch up and talk about some of this stuff next week right here on lightsinthenight.org. Thanks, Norman. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Russ.
Introducing Pure Light, the revolutionary air purification system integrated into a special LED light bulb. Pure Light eliminates pet odors, human odors, and even mold and smoke odors with just the flip of a light switch. Guaranteed for 5 years with a 100% money-back guarantee. Transform your home or office today. Visit pure-light.com and use code RUSS, R-U-S-S, for an exclusive 20% discount. Breathe cleaner, live happier with Pure Light. PURE-LIGHT.com. Promo code RUSS, R-U-S-S.
Thank you for joining us on Lights in the Night. Keep your eyes on the skies and stay curious. Until next time, good night.